don't be a fear monger, don't spread fear. But actually, I don't want to spread fear. I want to spread awareness, because we're not helpless. That's one of the good things about our tech. We actually have reached a level where we can do something about dangerous objects that the Earth is interacting with in space.
In fact, that has been done recently for the first time.
For the first time.
Yeah.
DART, pushing an asteroid just slightly off course we now know that that's a practical possibility. That's all you'd need to do with the dangerous objects in the Taurid Meteor stream. But it would require a combined effort of all the advanced cultures on Earth today in order to bring that about. It would be a big project, but it would be a worthy project. And I can think of many unworthy projects that the big nations are investing in at the moment, which we really don't need. This would be one that would be really rather useful.
Yeah, wouldn't it be better to cooperate and come up with a way of defending this planet? And see, you talk to some people about this, and they kind of consign it to the realm of science fiction. But clearly, I mean, just a couple of days ago, a new asteroid was discovered within the orbit of Venus that had been completely invisible, and it was huge. Now, it's not Earth-crossing, but I think we mentioned this the last time I was on here. You remember I went through this whole series since the late 1980s showing the near misses that have occurred every few months. Over and over again, I showed that on your show the last time I was here. Those are real. Those are real. And sooner or later, I mean, they're out there now that have our planet's name on them, our name and our number. We just haven't discovered them yet. I mean, the estimates now of potentially dangerous Earth-crossing asteroids is maybe 10%.
Of what's actually out there.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we're not only dealing with a lost civilization of the past, we're also dealing with a potential lost civilization of the future.
And if that happened to us, one of the big problems with today's information is it's stored on hard drives.
All gone.
All gone.
All gone, completely. And another big problem is that the majority of people in the advanced industrialized so-called civilizations don't have a clue about how to survive.
Right.
I know you do.
Barely.
But you've developed some skills, but I don't have those skills, and most of us don't have those skills to survive. Who would we take refuge with if our civilization went down? We would have to take refuge with hunter-gatherers, because hunter-gatherers are absolutely the masters of survival. And I think that's what happened 12,000, 11,000 years ago. The survivors of a higher civilization, I don't like the word higher, but a different kind of civilization, took refuge amongst hunter-gatherers and created projects like Göbekli Tepe, which were used to instruct and to teach and to bring in something new. We have 2 episodes in Turkey in my series. One episode is all about Göbekli Tepe, but Göbekli Tepe, 11,600 years old, isn't alone. There's another site we were the first film crew to get into called Karahan Tepe, which has now been excavated. Dates from the same period. It's the most extraordinary and amazing site. Nobody knew it was there until a decade ago. Furthermore, they found another 11 sites, all of them in a ring around Göbekli Tepe, all of them intervisible from one another because they're on hilltops. They've discovered them, but they haven't yet been excavated. It's fascinating that they all date to this period of 11,600 years ago. Another thing that we do in another episode of the series is we look at the so-called underground cities of Turkey. This is quite a famous phenomenon in Turkey, that there are huge cities. They look like ant farms on an enormous scale that are dug out under the earth. Hundreds and hundreds of rooms, that huge efforts was put into digging deep beneath the earth and creating these shelters. And archaeology does not have a good explanation about what they're there for, or why they were built, or when they were built. They're all cut out of stone. You can only date objects that were left in them. You can't say when they were actually made. What makes sense of those underground cities to me is that they were built as places of refuge that people could go into during an episode of meteor bombardment during the Younger Dryas, because there wasn't just the one 12,800 years ago. There were multiple episodes over the next 1,200 years. It makes sense that these underground cities were built as places of shelter, not as places to hide from an invading army. The last place you want to go if you have an invading army is to go hide underground. All they have to do is block up the entrances. They don't even have to fight you, you know. But if you're dealing with a periodic event which will be over in a couple of weeks, they're great places to retreat into. The evidence is all around us, all around the world, and that's why I've made this series, because I want to show people that it's not just a single thing. There's a huge story here.
When they date objects that they find in these underground cities, what are the dates they find?
The oldest, they actually have no idea. They were used by Christians, they were used by Muslims, they were used back in 2,000 plus years ago, as homes in some cases. There's some evidence that they going back 2,800 years, but it's all from objects found inside them, and those objects don't tell us when the original work of cutting out these enormous structures, and it took an enormous will to create them. There's not just one. There's dozens of them.
Can we find those, Jimmy? I'm sorry, Randall. You got the
pass the sacred cord,
or maybe you could find them.
Yeah, I could.
Derinkuyu, for example.
What's the name of the place?
DERIN KUYU.
Got it right there.
What's the oldest objects they find in there?
2,800 years plus.
Whoa, look at this.
Let's
cross-section is just amazing. I spent hours down there just wandering around and looking at this amazing place, and it makes no sense to me that
it's carved into stone.
It's cut literally out of the bedrock beneath the ground. There you can see a cross-section on the left there.
Far left. Yeah.
Wow. You know? These are a huge mystery. And the fact that objects have been dated to certain periods does not tell us when they were used. Every new culture that went in there would have removed most of the stuff that was in there before. But when you ask yourself what was the motive for creating something like this, the motive is clearly to hide from a danger from above, in my view.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
The most remarkable places. And they can be visited. The two that I visited in the series are Derinkuyu and Kaimakli. And these two sites are joined by an 8-kilometer tunnel underground.
8 kilometers?
8 kilometers long, which joins the two of them.
Dug out of stone?
Dug out of stone, the whole thing.
Wow.
You know,
How long would it take to complete something like this?
Well, it would take a very long time indeed. That's all I can say. Nobody's really done the calculations, but
and that one shows a vent to the sky.
Yep, they have vents. They have vents to the sky to allow air to come in. But you have to consider if you've got 10 or 15,000 people in there, they can't really stay in there much longer than about 2 or 3 weeks, which is about the time it takes to pass through the Taurid Meteor stream. Otherwise,